This is Teachers Talk Radio, and you are listening live.
Hello and welcome to Teachers Talk Radio, the late show with me, Sean Mackay. Tonight we'll be speaking to Rachel Huskisson and Bridget about everything library. So hopefully we'll have lots to talk about tonight in terms of how to try to increase a library's dominance in school, how it is and how
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and you are listening live. Tune in live at ttradio.org, or to join in the conversation, download the Podbean app and search Teachers Talk Radio. Follow the hashtag TTRadio. Tune in, talk it out with Teachers Talk Radio.
And good evening and welcome to Teachers Talk Radio. So tonight we are talking to Bridget Hamlet and Rachel Huskisson about everything library. Good evening both. How are you?
Really good, thanks.
Fabulous. We're just trying to get Rachel on. Is that right, Rachel? Are you there yet?
I'm Rachel speaking now. Can you hear me?
It's Rachel speaking now, so it's Bridget. We've not got at the moment. So let's keep going then, and let's start with the first thing then. So the first thing then,
There
Rachel,
she is.
have we got them? Have we got you both? Bridget, are you there?
Hi, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. That's brilliant. Thank you ever so much for coming. It's so wonderful to have you on the show, and it's really going to be nice to talk to you tonight. So first things first then, let's go with you, Rachel. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself and your school and what you do?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Rachel Huskisson. I am based in the Midlands and I work in a small private school in Derby. I'm a solo librarian and I've been there for 3 years.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much. And Bridget.
Hi, I'm Bridget Hamlet. I'm originally from Minnesota. I'll mention that so people aren't wondering about my accent. I first qualified to teach English and as a school librarian in the States. Moved here in 2002 and started in Coventry as a teacher, and then I moved to Leicester as an advisory librarian, and now I'm at Rushmead Academy in Leicester, which is a great big secondary school that is outstanding, and yeah, I love it.
Okay, that's brilliant. I know Rushmead coming from Leicester myself. So first things first then. I mean, first of all, thank you again for coming onto the show. It's absolutely fantastic to have you both here. So we'll go back to you, Rachel, to start off with. Can you tell me, what is it like for you being a librarian at your school?
Well, it's really varied. I think just to give you a bit more background, before I was in the school I'm in now, I worked at a big state school, quite a high area of deprivation. So I've experienced two quite extreme settings. And one of the issues with my old school, sadly, was there was a lot of behaviour problems, which made it a really hard job to do. So where I am now, the behaviour is really well managed. It's a smaller sort of setting, and I am able to actually do my job as a librarian, which I love. So it's really mixed. Every day is totally different. We've got classes coming in, working with lots of different groups, and yeah, I love it.
Fabulous. That's brilliant. So same question to you, Bridget. What's it like working as a librarian in your school?
Yeah, well, I think you can probably tell from both of us, we do love being a librarian is a privilege. It's fantastic. Yes. I'm in an amazing school, genuinely an amazing school. It is like a family. It's huge with about 1,800 students, but we have impeccable behavior. Honestly, they're so polite. I feel so supported. It's bustling, busy all the time. It can be relentless. But it's, the better I am at my job, the busier I am. So, it's a good problem to have, I suppose. And I just have, a really lovely rapport with the students and the staff. And, in general, I feel like I have ideas, people listen to my ideas, and I'm really well supported.
That's absolutely fantastic. It's always good to have a fantastic librarians at school, especially people that are so passionate about libraries like yourself. So, in terms of your library, and this time, Bridget, I'm going to come to you first. How have you, since you've been at your school, how have you raised the profile of your school library? How have you made it kind of the beating heart of your school?
Well, there's lots and lots of little things going on, but I suppose
Yeah,
the main thing was my ethos towards it. So when I started, I really take a customer service and marketing approach to the library. You know, I take a professional approach to it. So I
yeah.
think of it almost like a bookshop, and I
Oh,
have to
oh, okay.
start. I've got to start with, you know, the people who have the money, which is SLT. So I need to get them on board
Yeah.
first and make sure they understand my vision, they understand my passion, they understand, you know, what it's going to take for it to be an outstanding library service. And, you know, you've got to work from that angle
Hmm.
and get the stock up to date. So making sure that you have everything everybody wants. I'm
Yeah.
just constantly reading. I keep up to date with books, get new books. And, you know, I recognize that I'm part of a massive team of like 280 staff. And I,
Yeah.
you know, build rapport with them because they help me to market the library to all of the students. So that's, you know, from a vision point of view, I've had to do that. On the ground, it's coming up with ideas, initiatives, approaching people saying, hey, you know, should we try this? Could you promote this book? I saw
Hmm.
this links to your curriculum. So I've got to have knowledge of the curriculum so that the teachers buy in to my ideas and are willing to go with me on,
Yeah.
you know, a project or something like that. So
Hmm.
it's trialing a lot of new things and then growing them from, you know, a pilot.
Okay, so it seems like it's one of those things that takes a lot of time, but it doesn't seem to be something that you necessarily don't like giving up that time, because it seems the passion that you have for that library seems to kind of motivate you to keep you going. So, Rachel, same question to you. How have you raised the profile of your library?
Yeah, a lot of similar things really. I
Hmm.
started in between the lockdowns of COVID, so it was quite an interesting time to start. The library had been
Yeah.
closed for a good 6 months, and
Hmm.
it needed. Um, the first thing I did really was go through the stock. I did a massive stock take, weeded out loads of stuff, just to make it accurate, because a lot of the students were coming and looking for things and couldn't find them, and that's like, it's not a very satisfying, going to the customer service thing is not very satisfying if you can't find what you need. So
Yeah.
spent quite a lot of time getting on top of that, and then using our library management system to really promote what we had, put together vision and aims that tied in with the school aims, and yeah, just kind of worked on really marketing it. I got a Twitter page, started making sure that
Interesting.
the school newsletter always had something in about the library. Every time we did something, you know, the parents would know, there'd be photos. And also
Yeah.
did a big sort of school survey just to try and get some student voice.
Okay. Yeah.
It's quite a well-established library where I am, so
Hmm.
it's it it's sort of been there a long time. But I felt like it was important to kind of get current views on it, and whether students might like things to be a bit different. So yeah, it's loads of things. Genreified the fiction, so I changed
Yeah.
the way it's all ordered and things like that. But yeah, lots of things.
Again, it sounds like it's one of those things, isn't it? If you want to make something good, you have to kind of put the time and the passion into it. And it certainly seems that that's something that the two of you have actually put into it. I mean, both of them sound like a really professionally run library, as if it's something which is it's something that you want the kids to understand is literally for them, and it's about them. And I think that's absolutely wonderful. So I mean, our library, certainly one of the things that you said, Rachel, about having to clear out old books, it's one of the things that we're trying to do at the moment at our school library. We have loads of non-fiction books. And I think those are the ones that we have found the hardest, because they're linked to subject. We have science, non-fiction, and obviously history and geography. It's kind of, when do they run out? They have a shelf life of 10 years. Do you then, if something amazing comes out, do you then get rid of that book, or do you keep it for a little bit longer? So actually, that brings to an off-the-cuff question. When it comes to non-fiction, do you find that you spend a lot of time taking those books out and kind of replacing them with newer versions of things, or can you leave them for a little bit longer, do you think? I don't know, Rachel, if you want to go first.
Yeah, certainly. Well, for my first year, I didn't really touch anything because I needed to know exactly how the library was used by different staff.
Yeah.
We've got a sixth form as well, so there's often a lot of research projects that go on. So once I'd left it for a year and figured out how things were used, and then sort of went through it all systematically, created a weeding policy, so following guidelines from the School Library Association and other places.
Yeah.
Because it is, like you say, things over 10 years old, they've got to earn their place. If you're keeping them, you've got to have a good reason to keep it. And different subject areas are updated more frequently than others, just down to the nature of the subject. So it does take, you've got to go through each book individually, really, and assess it, and that does take time. So I tend to break it down into chunks, and each term I'll have a focus on certain areas, try and get subject teachers involved as well. Not always easy, but I do give them the option to come and have a look. Some teachers are real hoarders and they don't like to let go of things, so it can backfire a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I can certainly agree with you on that one. Bridget, what about you? Do you spend a lot of time kind of getting rid of those non-fiction books?
Yeah, I'm a much more ruthless editor of my collection, I guess I would say.
Okay.
I think I know that I'm in a privileged position because I have access to a really incredible schools library service. So I knew when I started 5 years ago, that was the first thing I had to do, just like Rachel said, is get the stock sorted. And I've kept some really old ones just as an example, just to show people how important it is. So I think there was a hairdressing book from 1985.
Dear.
It's really exciting to look at. So, I follow all the guidelines again, and because I'd been an advisory librarian, I had gone into so many schools to edit, like literally they paid our traded service to come in and edit their collection. So I felt pretty confident. And I knew I'd be able to get the up-to-date stock to fill the gaps. So I wasn't so worried about that. And I just knew that they take up valuable space. They also, can bring down the appearance of your collection. It's, again, it's that bookshop mentality, that marketing side of things. And, just because it's there and on the shelf doesn't necessarily mean anybody's going to borrow it. And if they're not taking it out, well, what's the point of having it there? Nobody's actually referencing it. Can that space be used for something more valuable? So definitely, it's really important. And, they are mass-produced objects. So I think sometimes people get really precious about books, but I think they are mass-produced. It is not the original. Okay, so it's okay. It's okay to get rid of them and get new stuff in.
Excellent. Certainly that with the 1985 hairstyle book is certainly something I'd like to look at, because it's probably try to find my hair, which is now missing after 49 years on this earth. Right, going to take a very quick break, and then I'm going to come back to you in a couple of seconds.
Teaching is a rewarding profession, but it comes with its fair share of challenges. That's where ADAPT come in. We're not your typical trade union, but instead a modern, apolitical alternative, offering expert legal, employment and mental health support. Protection without the politics. So what makes ADAPT different? We're always apolitical and independent, specialised solely in supporting individual teachers. Our caseworkers are professionally qualified, ensuring you always get the best advice. Plus, there's 24/7 mental health support. Whether it's a simple contract check or handling serious allegations, ADAPT are here for you. Join the thousands of educators who've chosen ADAPT to protect their careers. Subscribe at adapt.org.uk today. ADAPT. Supporting school staff. Protecting careers.
Right, so welcome back to the show. We are here with Rachel Huskisson and Bridget Hawthorne Hamlets, and we are talking about all things libraries. So let's go to the next one, which is something that I found is really kind of something for me, which I found in my school is affecting us. So with school budgets being kind of squeezed the way that they are, how have you managed to keep the library up to date and relevant? So I'm going to come back to you, Bridget, if you can start that one, if you can, for me.
So, as I mentioned before, I do rely heavily on our school's library service. We're fortunate in
Yep.
Leicestershire that we still have one.
Mhm.
And also, I do have to recognize that, I've benefited hugely from the work of my predecessor, who always insisted the library and really fought hard for the library to be funded properly. So I know I'm in a rare position that we spend about £13 per student
Yeah.
in our library budget. And I feel really strongly that that shouldn't be the exception. That should actually be the norm. So, I do utilize the services and resources that I have at my disposal very, very well. Books and initiatives, they do cost money. And we know that reading for pleasure is the most important aspect of a child's future success and health and happiness. And with that in mind, I think, well, really, people need to question the spending priorities. I think there are perhaps, places where things can be looked at more critically at times that aren't always looked at critically. I think sometimes IT budgets are quite massive at times comparatively, and they get replaced and relevant and updated all the time, and nobody questions it. Things like that. But I just, I do look for value for money. I do use really good library suppliers, because it's not just the money, it's also the time. It's recognizing that you need to be effective with your time and your professional time. So using all of those services at my disposal, hopping on to different initiatives. I enter lots of competitions on Twitter, win free books.
Absolutely, yeah, I know. I'm absolutely with you on that one.
Yeah. I take advantage of the World Book Day book packs.
Yeah.
So that's a huge one for taking down a barrier with, we've got a large disadvantaged population. Even though you get the £1 book vouchers, they have to actually go to the shop and get the books. Well, they weren't doing that.
Indeed, yeah.
So to take down that barrier, I buy the book packs. It's 50 books for £5. It's 10p a book. And we just give them to the kids. So it just, sometimes it's being creative and taking down those barriers. And that's, I think, a really good use of money, and making the most of what you've got. But I can say hands down, having the school's library service is a huge cost and time saver. I'm really fortunate.
Okay, brilliant. Absolutely amazing. Thank you. So Rachel, the same thing. How have you kept your library budget up to date with that squeeze?
Well, again, I'm in a really privileged position where I've got a healthy budget, being in the private sector as well. That's obviously not as big an issue, but I'm part of a Facebook group with about 900 school librarians on. So I would say almost every day you're hearing stories about budgets being cut, or you're just suddenly given zero money, and it's just so sad, because even with a small nominal budget, you can refresh stock and just keep it looking a little bit more up to date, because as soon as the books start getting tatty and they're just not appealing, and then people stop using it and your loan figures go down, the school will say, well, it's not being used, not a valuable resource. But it's just this catch-22 then, isn't it? So it is sad that there's this issue in schools, and it's part of the reason why I got involved with the Great School Library campaign, because their campaign is to see every school have a library, and the fact that it's not statutory to have a school library when it is in prisons is quite something. But the current situation is that schools are given their budget and it's up to them how they spend it. So the library can sometimes be seen as an easy way of saving money, and everyone's under pressure at the moment, aren't they? So
yeah, absolutely. It is. I mean, one of the things we've got is Kindles in our library, and one of the things that we've tried to do is there's a website called www.bookbub.com, and it's essentially, it gives you free ebooks, or very cheap ebooks, which we've kind of loaded onto those e-readers, to try to get those lent out, just so that there is a wealth of books there as well, because that's one of the ways that we've tried to, because our budget obviously has been cut as well, because you've got to try to be creative in the way that you get books. I don't know if you've done the same thing, whether you've got things like Audible or some way of listening to it, because one of the things that I've tried to do to keep it relevant is to try to find some way of getting audiobooks. I've not figured out a way yet, because there are. Oh, brilliant. Fantastic. Thank you. Yes, please, if you could, that would be amazing.
Sorry to interrupt. Well, especially you're in Leicester, you've got one of the best public library services in the country. They fought hard for it. Leicester has amazing free audiobooks, free newspapers, free magazines, free comic books, free ebooks, all through various apps. So there's a Libby app. You could just go to the Leicester Library's website. So most public libraries, I mean, I live in Warwickshire. Warwickshire has the same thing. And so I think a lot of people don't realize they can get free audiobooks. I listen to them every single day on my commute, every day, and absolutely free. So that's what I promote in my school library, is the free use of the public library system, free ebooks and audiobooks and magazines and comic books.
Fabulous. So that is certainly something that we can do in our library. That's brilliant. Certainly something I didn't know. It's amazing, these things that you learn. I mean, I've been a literacy coordinator for about 5 years now, and trying to run the library as well, obviously. So having things like this is brilliant, because it helps me a lot, because then I can pass this on. So let's think about it. Are there any other ways that you've used that's helped you to keep up to date without spending? So for instance, sometimes I go around and look in charity shops to try to see if there are any really quite good books that I can buy cheaply and put in the library. Do you do anything like that, or is there any other kind of cost saving ones like the library app, or funding it in different ways that you found to make the library still up to date but on a really tight budget?
I'm a big fan of the charity shop. Yes, you can often pick up some really good bargains. It's great for getting sort of popular books that the kids get through quite quickly. So I always go and have a browse there. BookBuzz is a good initiative. I don't know if you've come across that, where
I've heard of it.
About £3 a head per student, and you pay for the books, but then you get 2 or 3 extra sets for your library free. So that's quite a nice one to do. And I do believe, and I might be wrong on this, Bridget, that state schools get a packet of a box of books each year, but I don't know if that's changing now.
It's just finished. Yeah, we used to get the school library pack. It was amazing, but again, central government, I'm sure, cut that somewhere along the line. I know some schools who use like wish lists, so you can use library suppliers. So, there's various library suppliers up and down the country. I'm sure you use them to buy your textbooks and things like that. So, for example, Brown's Books for Students, Peter's Books, those types of things. Oftentimes they'll do a wish list, and it allows you. I mean, I know a lot of schools do still use Amazon, but Amazon isn't always the best price now. People don't shop around now. They got used to using it. So it's worth checking out these other suppliers. I think Askew's is another one. Scholastic, certainly. And they'll do wish lists where I think you can create a wish list and then send it out to parents or other stakeholders within your school, and actually get them to donate towards that wish list. So you're still selecting the stock that is going to be up to date, relevant. You've been able to research. You can get student voice and staff voice on it. But you're still reliant on donations, but it's yet another creative way around that problem.
Okay, that's sorry. Yep. No, carry on, please.
I think you have to be careful with donations, don't you? Because you can end up with stuff you don't really want, and then
that's why I like the wish list one. You dictate what's actually ordered. You state this is what we're getting. Yeah, the actual book donations. is always one of those really interesting diplomatic situations.
Yeah. So we've had a little request. One of the people that are actually in TIK Radio has actually asked whether or not you can repeat the website name for the free books. Was it
Was that
Book
Book
Buzz? I think was.
Yeah, so I can
With,
type it if that helps. But
yeah,
it's
that would be
run
great if you could.
by the Book Trust. But yeah, if you
Mhm.
look up Book Buzz, I think that will work. Oh, it's
Okay,
not letting me
so
type. Sorry.
yeah. So the next thing, and the next one is about your most borrowed books. Now, hopefully, we'll have a really good conversation on this one because we, at the moment, we have got and I'm trying to remember the name of them because literally I wrote them down and the piece of paper that I wrote them down on has gone. So it is a television series at the minute on Netflix, and there's a bunch of books. It's an LGBTQ plus series. Heartstopper, that's the one.
Yeah.
They are literally flying off of our shelves. We've had to buy an extra set of them because literally everyone wants to read them at the moment. Personally, I haven't read any of them just yet, but obviously it's something that I'm going to try to read in the future. So I don't know who wants to go first, but what are your most borrowed books? Bridget, let's go with you first.
All right. So yeah, Heartstopper was the top of my list. So yep, you're
okay.
right on there. We've got 3 copies. Actually, if teachers want to keep up to date with the reading, that's a really, really quick, easy one to be on the money with, because I read all 4 in like one afternoon. But alongside Heartstopper, just manga books, so anime and manga books in general, graphic novels. So like Raina Telgemeier, Dave Pilkey, who does Dogman, Jamie Smart with the Bunny versus Monkey books. Aaron Blabey does the bad guys. So a lot of them are television related, but like the Bunny versus Monkey is great because it's part of the Phoenix Comics series, and that's from David Fickling. And they're just amazing. You've got your old favorites that the kids still love. So you've still got your Wimpy Kid, Tom Gates, Dork Diaries, Harry Potter, perennially popular. You can't go wrong with those. But I like that a lot of them are getting into Pamela Butchart. So she's a great comedy writer. They like the Little Bad Man series by Harry White and Hamza Arshad. And for older readers, especially, we've got the detective and murder mysteries are hugely popular now. So the Holly Jackson, Good Girl's Guide to Murder, Robin Stevens, Murder Most Unladylike, the Karen McManus, One of Us is Lying, which is the Netflix tie-in as well. I always promote the Maureen Johnson Truly Devious series. So that's like massive. And then they, of course, Enemies to Lovers, the old Pride and Prejudice classic. But the modern uptake has that supernatural romance or the dystopian side to it. So you've got your Holly Black with Cruel Prince. I think we've got a list of like 10 people waiting for that. Saba Tahir's Ember in the Ashes series, Sarah J. Maas, Cassandra Clare, Lee Bardugo, all of them.
just
great.
So everyone seems to be coming into your library with the amount of books being borrowed. That is absolutely fantastic.
It's true.
I mean, I can certainly. It's one of the Pride and Prejudice is one of my favourite books, and same as Wuthering Heights. It's the classical nature of those ones I love, and I always endorse those books. So when people are in there and I'm in there, I say, "Why don't you try this one?" And they just look at me as if to say, this is. A classic book. Why are you recommending this? So, Rachel, I'm going to come to you after the news because we're going to break for news at the moment, and then we'll come back in about 5 or 6 minutes' time to talk to Rachel about the books which are most borrowed from hers.
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and this...
Teaching is a rewarding profession, but it comes with its fair share of challenges. That's where ADAPT come in. We're not your typical trade union, but instead a modern, apolitical alternative, offering expert legal, employment and mental health support. Protection without the politics. So what makes ADAPT different? We're always apolitical and independent, specialised solely in supporting individual teachers, Our caseworkers are professionally qualified, ensuring you always get the best advice. Plus, there's 24/7 mental health support. Whether it's a simple contract check or handling serious allegations, EDAPT are here for you. Join the thousands of educators who've chosen EDAPT to protect their careers. Subscribe at edapt.org.uk today. EDAPT. Supporting school staff. Protecting careers.
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and this is Teachers Talk Radio News.
RAC remains the top education story across many media outlets, with the BBC focusing on the impact the issue is having on universities across the UK. The news website refers to closures of lecture theatres, science labs and student unions. So far, 14 universities have told the BBC that they have closed or partially closed areas containing the reinforced autoclaved aerated concrete. Some lectures have had to be relocated, and a small number of universities have had to find alternative accommodation for students, as halls of residence have also been affected. This has placed additional pressures on universities already facing housing shortages, with charity Unipol suggesting that student housing shortages are going to get worse in some cities. Student numbers are growing, but the number of new rooms is tumbling. This is largely due to high building costs, older buildings falling into disrepair, and now RAC concerns are adding to the issue. Last week, the DfE published the list of 147 schools in England built using the concrete. 6 unions have now written to Education Secretary Gillian Keegan asking a series of urgent questions. The BBC says that Essex is the county in England with the most affected schools, with 25 closed, partly closed or making alternative arrangements. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has dismissed suggestions that he was at fault for the concrete crisis. During Prime Minister's question time, he said his government had acted decisively, whilst opposition leader Sir Keir Starmer referred to him as Captain Hindsight. In Wales, only 2 schools have so far been affected by RAC, but First Minister Mark Drakeford said inspections were ongoing. In Scotland, Humza Yousaf has outlined his plans for the coming year, with a heavy focus on expanding childcare provision, saying it is the best way to support families. This plan includes the recruitment of 1,000 more childminders by 2026. Free childcare hours are being extended to 2-year-olds across the country. There will be a pilot of expanded care from 9 months to the end of primary in 6 local authority areas, and free school meals for P6 and P7 pupils moves forward. But those in receipt of the Scottish Child Payment will receive them first by 2024, with others following by 2026. Last week, Mr Yousaf also commented on the issue of banning single-use vapes, and linked this to the comments made about young people using vapes too often. He stated that the government will consult on curbing the sale of disposable single-use vapes, including consulting on an outright ban. According to The Guardian, South Korean teachers have staged walkouts over harassment by parents and students. Thousands of staff attended a rally in Seoul demanding better protection after a number of teacher suicides. Teachers are being increasingly vocal about their experiences of maltreatment, including being accused of child abuse after disciplining students. Around 15,000 teachers attended a rally last week, and some schools had to temporarily close due to a lack of staff. As of June 2023, 100 school teachers had died by suicide in the country since 2018. The current Education Ministry blamed the current situation on previous governments, saying that they had overemphasised students' human rights over teachers' rights. Finally, The Guardian also reports that a city in Japan is tackling a rise in truancy with the help of robots. 2 schools in Kumamoto have purchased mechanical assistants to help children regain confidence in dealing with teachers and their peers. It is hoped the robots will encourage children to attend classes remotely and eventually coax them back in person. The robots will be equipped with microphones, speakers and cameras. Students learning remotely will be connected to the robots via laptops, allowing them to attend and take part in discussions. The robots will not be confined to classrooms, but be free to roam so pupils can take part in other events and enjoy social times remotely too. Japan, like many countries, including the UK, is facing a rise in the number of pupils refusing to go to school since the pandemic. Could robots be the key to improvement? This has been your Teachers Talk Radio News with Joe Fox.
This is 2 Minute Tech with Steve Woods, your tech briefing on Teachers Talk Radio.
Hello, this week we've all returned to work and I'm going to discuss the old argument of digital or paper diary. For every argument for going digital, there's a counter argument for not, and vice versa. You can access a digital diary from anywhere, on any device, but if you don't have a signal, it's useless. A paper diary can't get hacked, but it can be picked up and read if left lying around. You get the point. I personally like a digital diary as it suits the way I work. I can add links to online meetings, add notes and attach documents. I can see my day, week, month, year at the click of a button, and the most useful thing for me is I get reminder notifications. One thing to consider if moving digital this year is policies on phones in your school, as this is the most likely way you'll access it on the move. And probably most importantly, if you're using your phone, will you be able to resist the notifications from other apps or emails you see when you switch it on to use it? Cost doesn't really apply as a factor because you probably already have a phone capable of running a digital diary. But work-life balance may need to be considered as the diary is there 24/7. This can, however, be remedied by using Do Not Disturb settings for notifications. In the end, it's a personal choice. Are you paper or digital? Let us know at TT Radio Official. I'm Steve Woods, and that was 2 Minute Tech.
2 Minute Tech with Steve Woods, your tech briefing on Teachers Talk Radio.
Okay, so welcome back to the show. We are talking to Rachel Huskinson and Bridget Hamlet about all things library. So before the news, we were talking to Bridget and asked her about all of the lovely books that people take off, the most borrowed books. So Rachel, same question. What are the most borrowed books in your school?
Well, you won't be surprised to hear that Heartstopper is probably at the top of my list as well. Yeah, we had to limit it to 1 week only loans at one point because we were just struggling to get them out. But yeah, Good Girl's Guide to Murder, as Bridget's mentioned, very popular crime and mystery books in our school. So trying to get other books for them to read that are similar is what I'm always looking for because they get through those quite quickly. The Summer I Turned Pretty, which is another TV tie-in one. I think it's on Netflix. That's a popular series.
Yes, I think I've seen that.
School for Good and Evil as well, which there's obviously a theme. The Netflix thing is a big draw, I think. Yeah, so I suppose my challenge is really trying to get them to read a bit more broadly around some of the things that perhaps don't feel so familiar. Book Talk is another big influencer with some of our students. So you often get, you start to see patterns when they start asking for certain things. You think, oh, okay, this one's probably on Book Talk. The big
Book
fantasy series, they're all popular. Yeah.
Okay, I'm just going to ask about that. I've had some people mention that before. Book Talk, being the ancient kind of man that I am, what is Book Talk?
Well, I don't actually use it myself because I'm not on TikTok, but I think it's, and Bridget can correct me if I'm wrong, it's a sort of stream of TikTok where people talk about books and it's like little short reviews that people follow. But yeah, feel free to jump in, Bridget.
I mean, I'm similar to you. I'm not on TikTok. I'm very protective of my own mental health, and I know social media needs limitations and stuff. But I have the exact same thing happen at my school. They see things on Book Talk, and we are then prey to the algorithms. And also, it's a lot of this stuff not necessarily appropriate, not necessarily right for the age group. They just see it as cool. And once you start to get to know the student, and it is really building that relationship, finding out, right, you saw this, it's really cool, but what is it actually that you really want in a book? And when you start to drill down a little bit, you can say, well, how about we try this instead? This might be a little bit more your speed, sort of a thing. So Yeah, because we had the old Karen Hoover,
Yeah,
not Karen, Colleen
Yeah.
Hoover. Okay, let's not mention it. So yeah, I'm with you on that. It's tricky, but again, just because it's popular doesn't mean it's the best thing.
No.
And it's trying to make them a little bit more discerning. Yeah.
Yeah. How could we do that? That's cost of, that's a random question. How can we make kids more discerning when they come into the library? How do we? Is it the way we advertise the library? Is it the way we set out the library that helps them to kind of broaden their horizons, or do we have to rely on teachers? Do we have to have the help of other people? How do we get the kids to broaden their horizons once they walk through those doors into your library? I don't know who wants to go with that one first. I know it's a random question that I didn't give you, but
we have library lessons with our year 7s and 8s.
Yeah.
So we get regular opportunities to encourage book talk. This week, for example, we did a whole thing on how you choose a book, trying to be a bit more discerning, giving them ideas for looking at reviews. We use our catalogue system. We have a great dashboard sort of interface for the students where there are loads of book lists, reviews, links to other websites and stuff. So trying to get them to kind of just not, to kind of, I suppose, look into it a bit more deeply and not just either randomly pick a book off the shelf because it's a thin book, or something that they've only, they know. It's getting them to think of the things that, or try things that are new, like read the first few pages, see what you think. But definitely getting teachers involved. All our teachers have a sign on their door that says "I am reading," and I encourage the students, if their teacher hasn't been updating it, to go and ask the teacher if they're still reading the same book or not.
Okay, Bridget, same question.
Very similarly, we've got amazing website. We do have library lessons as well, and there's a couple of little things that I've tried that have been quite effective. So I do one of the things I teach in the lessons is what 3 words. So when they come up to the desk, they have to say 3 words that kind of tell me something about that book to indicate that they have read the blurb, looked inside, that they actually know what they're getting with that book. And if the 3 words they say doesn't match what that book is actually about, I think, well, let's have a little chat about this. So it just makes them stop and think. But it's a quick way for me because I do lend out a lot of books. I do have a few. So it's trying to get it through quickly. And we have, like Rachel said, getting the teachers to promote. So our geography department's amazing. One of the things they do is they just pick 1 book per term. All the staff read that book. They ask me first. I get to pick the book, which is nice. I have multiple copies of the book. It's a simple thing, but so many people promote a book that you either don't have in the library or you only have 1 copy. So it's like, nice. They're thoughtful. And then they get rewarded for trying that book, for having a chat with their geography teacher about that book. And it really, sends it sort of around the school. So, other departments are starting to take note of that. And it's a quick win for them. But it's really good for the students to try new things as well.
Wow, I mean, that's certainly something that I've certainly written that down, getting the departments involved. I mean, certainly, because then everyone becomes involved and it becomes a whole school thing, which is, I think, essential for a library to flourish, is to get every single department and all the staff kind of buying in to the sense that the library is that part of the school and it's going to help kind of tie into all their lessons. So let's move on to the next question that I've got for you. So, Bridget, I'm going to come back to you again. So what has been your kind of most successful campaign to get students through that door and into the library?
So I don't know if I'd really class it as a campaign as such, but I really feel really strongly about equitable access and opportunity, especially, with us being in an area of deprivation. We have a massive EAL cohort in our school. So it's really important that I take down any barriers. And so year 2 of starting there, I approached the English curriculum and asked for some curriculum time for library lessons for all year groups. So it's kind of common to have year 7, maybe year 7 and 8, but we actually have every kid. I see every kid pretty much once a half term. And with 1,800 students, that's no mean feat. So yeah, we've got about a 14 form entry. So it's a logistical nightmare for me to work it out.
Yeah.
But they do give up that curriculum time because they buy into it as well, and they know it's important. And for me, I know every single student at some point is brought into the library. They don't have to come on their own, because reluctant readers, they do think of it as a punishment. They don't want to come during their break and lunch because they want to be running around outside. And I can understand that. I don't want them to see the library as a punishment. And when they come in, I make sure that they're welcome, that they know I want them to be there. I love seeing them. And so that commitment from the English department, I really, really appreciate that.
Yeah.
And I think it does make a huge difference. And, we lend like 2,000 books a month. And, I'm really proud of that. And I think our students really do value reading. So I think a lot of it's down to that really simple idea of they're being brought into the library.
Okay, that's fantastic. Yeah, certainly. Again, I'm writing all of these things down because this is kind of like CPD for me. I'm going to go back to my school to Monday morning and just start implementing some of these things. So, Rachel, same thing to you. What's been your most successful campaign to get students kind of through those doors and into your library?
I think similar to Bridget, really, it's about working with staff and encouraging them to bring classes in, because we only have timetabled year 7 and 8, but the library can be booked for all sorts of things. We now have a year 10 project, which is all about research and inquiry learning. So that's a really good opportunity to get involved there. And I can contribute as well, because obviously librarians aren't just about reading for pleasure. There's all sorts of skills we have as far as information literacy and just it's hard work sometimes, because you feel like you're constantly trying to make these links, but listening, being aware of what's going on across the school, dropping an email to someone. It doesn't always land, but you might say, oh, I heard you doing this is what we've got, we can offer. Do you want to bring your class in? Getting them to link homework to a library skill, or come to the library, find a book to do with the subject, read it, whatever. It's those little things that broaden it and make it whole school, which it is. It's whole school resource, and that's what I'm really trying to do at the moment. So I'm getting there.
Absolutely. I mean, I certainly think that's a really good thing. I really like the fact, the homework, go to the library, borrow a book that's to do with the topic that we're doing at the moment and read it. I think that could be a really fantastic way of getting kids into the library. It's certainly something. Again, I'm running out of paper because the amount of things I'm writing down. Because
check with the
just
librarian before that they've got enough books.
Yeah, that would be a good thing, because you don't want them going into the library and having no books. But yeah, certainly trying to get people through the door. So trying to get people through the door through library lessons. You both mentioned library lessons. What sort of things do you do when you come into those library lessons? Because I know that we used to do them. We don't do them anymore, but it's certainly something that I would like to bring back. So when the kids do bring them through the door, the teachers bring them through the door, what do you do with them? Rachel, do you want to go first, and then I'll ask Bridget afterwards?
Sure. So we've actually just changed our timetable this year. So up until this year, we had single lessons, so we had a half an hour every week. Now we get an hour every 2 weeks. So we've had to really think about how it works. But our library lessons are very much tied in with the English scheme of work, which isn't the case in a lot of schools. But so they usually, what we're doing is they have an activity for the first half that is linked with whatever's going on in their English curriculum. And then the second half, the second 30 minutes, is choosing and reading silently. And then during that time, I do one-to-ones with them just to catch up on what they're reading. They have a reading record with a bingo sheet. So I go through that with them just to kind of keep them motivated and check there aren't any problems with that. But the activities really vary. They might be to do with reading for pleasure, or they might be linked with a research task. So they're doing, for example, Anne Frank's diary at the moment, one group.
Yeah.
So, and then we might have autobiographies or some sort of inquiry project where they'll be using databases and sort of teaching them those kind of skills. So yeah, it's really varied. But I sort of share it with the teachers, so we sort of co-teach those lessons. But yeah.
Okay, fabulous. That's brilliant. Thank you, Bridget. Same question to you.
Yeah, so ours is a bit more light touch, but it is a 1 hour lesson. And so at year 7, because I get to see them twice a half term, so 12 times in the year, really, I have like a 12 lesson curriculum that I've designed, I suppose. The first half, I call it a mini lesson. So it's how the library works, how to use the website, how to search for books, how to find the right books, different reading initiatives, challenges, things like that. So we've got that for the first half, and then the second half, much like Rachel, is, you know, definitely time to browse, borrow books, sit down, read, and just have that really nice time in the library, as it were. As they get older, because I only see them once a half term, it becomes, again, the challenges initiative. So certainly if we've got higher ability students, I definitely put out more challenging books. We do different book challenges through different companies and stuff as well. And so really promoting that. But the first half tends to be like a book talk. So I will talk about, I don't know, 5 to 10 different books, maybe new books, etc. And then they've got time to browse. And I've just started having them do a little bit of a focused reading task. So they have a certain amount of time to find the books. They come back to the tables, and on my whiteboard I put up, it's kind of linked to the GCSE paper 1 questions. So just to get them kind of thinking about those things in a light touch way, and get it habitually to think about writer's choices, and really it focuses their attention. They appreciate that structure, and so I get a lot more focused reading by them answering those things on mini whiteboards, as opposed to just diaphanously read silently. It wasn't always working, and that seems to be working. That format's working all right. I think my English teachers are happy with it. So, you know, until we come up with a better plan, that one's working right now.
No, it sounds absolutely great. As I said, it sounds like something that you know, lots of people in lots of schools can use. That's fantastic. So we're going to take a little quick break and then we'll come back for the last part of the show. So back in a second.
Teaching is a rewarding profession, but it comes with its fair share of challenges. That's where ADAPT come in. We're not your typical trade union, but instead a modern, apolitical alternative, offering expert legal, employment and mental health support. Protection without the politics. So what makes ADAPT different? We're always apolitical and independent, specialised solely in supporting individual teachers. Our caseworkers are professionally qualified, ensuring you always get the best advice. Plus, there's 24/7 mental health support. Whether it's a simple contract check or handling serious allegations, ADAPT are here for you. Join the thousands of educators who've chosen ADAPT to protect their careers. Subscribe at adapt.org.uk today. ADAPT. Supporting school staff. Protecting careers.
Right, so welcome back to the show for the last part of the Late Show with me, Sean Mackay, with special guests Rachel Huskisson and Bridget Hamlet. So my last kind of question to you both, and I might throw an extra one in because one of the things that I wanted, that I thought about just before I came onto the show, was the fact that the two of you are kind of librarians. And I just wanted to very quickly ask you, before I go on to my final question, how essential is it for a school library to have a librarian? Rachel, do you want to go with that one first?
Well, I'm going to say yes, totally essential. You can have a room full of books, but it's not a library until the librarian is there, curating it, just making it work, establishing how it links with the rest of the school. It is vital. Using the word librarian can be a bit problematic because there's a whole broad spectrum of people who work in libraries, from I would say library worker is probably, some
Yeah.
people might not call themselves a librarian if they haven't got library qualifications.
Yeah.
To me, it doesn't matter if you're in a school and you're working in the library, you're a librarian. But there's a huge issue within the profession, because it's been eroded over the last few years, that
Yeah.
the schools don't always value the professionalism of librarians. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of stuff that isn't quite where it should be, and it's in my opinion, it's gone too far the other way and needs kind of re-establishing. But obviously there are a lot of issues around that. But yes, a librarian is essential, totally.
Absolutely agree with you. So, Bridget, the same to you. How essential are librarians to the school library?
Well, of course, I'm going to say they're incredibly essential, but it makes a huge difference. And trying not to stand on a soapbox here, but it is a whole school resource. It requires expert attention. We run a massive database. I think people forget the behind the scenes. Those books don't just magically appear on the shelves. We have websites that are public facing. We deal with every single student and staff member in the school and provide a customer service for all of them. We don't have food tech teachers running the canteen. We don't have math teachers running the finance department. I've never understood why on earth, with all of the stress and pressure that teachers are under, any teacher would be responsible for running the library. It doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. You need an expert there who knows what they're doing and can pay attention to it. And if you really want to advance a reading culture, and if you really do want reading for pleasure to advance in your school, you've got to get an expert in, and you have to pay for an expert. You can't get it on the cheap. You do get what you pay for. And I think it's really important. We can't deprofessionalize teaching, and we can't deprofessionalize librarianship. And if you go down that route, where do we stop? You can't get a computer program that does what a human being does.
Oh, I absolutely agree. I think they are absolutely essential. And hopefully any librarians or schools that don't have a librarian think again. You need those experts in the room. So my last question for tonight, to summarise, what are your 3 kind of top tips for raising the profile of a school library and kind of getting more students to come into it? So Bridget, let's go with you first.
I'll try to be quick. Right. I think one really important thing is to make sure that your library program is part of the whole school reward system. So whatever reward system you've got. So we have like house trophies for various things. And one of them is a reading trophy. So that's just strictly by house book borrowing. But it adds to the competition. It adds to the profile. We get the house leaders talking about the reading trophy, adds a fun element of competition to it. So it's on the radar of everyone. But certainly I'm giving extracurricular reward points. We have a passport system for further reading. Anything that ties into whole school systems of reward, definitely, if you've got badges for other subject areas, your library has to have a badge. Anything like that, rewarding them. Making sure that, as Rachel's mentioned before, sharing that good news, getting in the newsletters, really, you've got to get quick wins with people. So little emails. I emailed the head of year 7 today saying how proud I was of the year 7s, how great they've been in the library, how many books they've been borrowing, how fantastic they were during our silent library. All those little things, because teachers oftentimes don't hear feedback from the good things they do. They just get negative stuff. And so I'm always trying to be the force of positivity in my school as much as I possibly can. So they open their inbox on a Friday afternoon and have a lovely email from me. And that makes a big difference. And then thirdly, it's customer service matters. You've got to really focus that every person that enters that library is important to you and is interesting to you, and you want to know more about them, and you make them feel special so that they want to come back, because even for no other reason than they like being in that space. They feel like they belong, and it's a safe space for them. And you have something there that they can't get anywhere else in school. And sometimes that might just be feeling like they're an important person. So that customer service is really, really important to me.
Okay, brilliant. That's wonderful. Thank you. Rachel, the same question to you.
So I'd say number one is that relationships are key, whether that's with staff, students, senior leaders. You've got to really work at those, and it's hard because often librarians are on duty at break and lunchtime when staff are in the staff room. So you do have to look for the opportunities, but like Bridget said, it's kind of shouting about what you do and just making sure you're constantly making people aware. I do an annual report every year, which I try and share with the governors and the senior leaders, just giving a broad, overview of everything that goes on in the library, because people see snippets of it, but they don't see the big picture. So I think that's really important. Another one is student voice. So I've got quite a good team of student library helpers who do a great job of being ambassadors for the library. They have a big say in what goes on, competitions, ideas, displays, all sorts. It's all through the students, and it's their library after all. So I always try and make sure their voice is heard. They have an award system as well that they, again, a bit like Bridget's saying, they get badges and all sorts. They get taken up in assembly and given stuff. So that's
brilliant, fantastic. So thank you ever so much, both of you. So many amazing things that we've talked about in terms of making that library the central point, the central part, the beating heart of a school. So thank you both for coming onto the show, and hopefully I'll be able to at some point in the future maybe invite you back to talk more about books, certainly the books that you recommend. But thank you ever so much for coming onto the show. So that's it, ladies and gentlemen, for tonight on the Late Late Show with Sean Mackay. We've been talking about all things library. And we've had some fantastic things talked about today from Rachel and Bridget about whole school rewards and making sure that the library is a whole part of that, sharing the good news with emails home, and making sure that that customer service is up to date, the building relationships, ensuring that student voice is in there. There are so many things that we've talked about throughout this. The favourite books, the wish list, www.bookbuzz.com. There was those websites as well. But everything that you need in order to ensure that your library is up and running and the central part of your school. I hope you've enjoyed the show. I'll be back in 2 weeks on Teachers Talk Radio on Friday from between 9 and 10. So hopefully I will see you next time. Have a fantastic weekend, everyone, and we will see you soon.
You've been listening to Teachers Talk Radio. Tune in live and listen back at ttradio.org. We look forward to hearing from you next time on Teachers Talk Radio.